All right, everyone, welcome once again. It is Friday, and you know what that means. It is time for Manufacturing E-Commerce Success. I am your co-host, Damon Pistolka. That way, pretty guy right over there, Curt Anderson, co-host. We're going to be talking today about human creativity and machine efficiency and industrial marketing. Oh my goodness, we're going to have fun. Curt, take it away, my friend. Let's do this.
Dude, that was a mouthful. Happy Friday, Damon. How are you, man?
I'm good. I had to practice that for like 20 minutes before we got on, just so I could say it without stumbling.
And it's still all right. So I hope you got a good night's sleep, because this is going to be phenomenal. This is a great program. This is going to be a master class. All right. So I hope everybody's sitting down for this one. This is an honor, privilege. Introduce our dear friend, John Joyce. John, how are you, dude?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. I can feel the energy.
My honor, my privilege.
Friday energy. I'm surprised you still have it, but yeah, let's go.
Well, Damon's in the morning. I'm like lunchtime. You're past happy hour where you're at. So all right, let's dive in, John. We've got a ton to cover, lots in common. I just, what an honor, privilege. I had to meet you in Austin, Texas at the Industrial Marketing Summit. Damon, speaking of the Industrial Marketing Summit, guess who was at the Industrial Marketing Summit?
Who?
I got it. That fine young lady right there. Whitney Houston was in the house at the Industrial Marketing Summit. Whitney, you met John. So John was just a powerhouse speaker. Our friend Wendy Covey, the whole crew, Joe Sullivan from Gorilla 76, the guys at Adam at Cadenas. They threw a little party. Hey, Harry's here today. Harry.
He said from hot Chicago. I think it's going to be like nearly 100 degrees there this week. That's going to be lovely.
Hot Chicago. Hey, that's Damon, crazy. We're going to be live in Chicago next week, man.
Yes, we are.
We're going to be streaming live from Chicago next week. But hey, John, let's dive in. So we have so much to cover. Industrial marketing expert here. But before we go there, I have a quick question for you. Curious minds would love to know. When you were a little guy growing up, John Joyce, who was your hero? Who did you look up to, and who was your hero when you were a little guy?
Yeah, that's funny. That's a funny question. I would say probably my dad is super obvious answer, but my parents, my mom and dad, and I think actually both of them are a huge part of who I am, because my mom was a pianist and my dad ran a software company and was a software architect, and that creative side and that logical side were both driven into me, my whole life. And I'm a musician and a creative guy on the marketing side, and also I love coding and building systems and all that kind of stuff. So I went through that teen phase where I hated my parents. I'm just going to admit it. Like I was like, the last thing I want to do is be like my parents. And then came back out the other side, like with so many things that are from my parents. And now both of them have passed, and all those things that they just serve as like little reminders of them, So might be a canned answer or kind of like a typical answer, but I definitely would have to say probably my mom and dad.
No, hey, you know what, John? That was a beautiful answer, not canned whatsoever, just completely inspiring. Mom and dad's names, please.
John. So I'm John Jr. JJJ, if there's not enough J's in there. And my mom was Ruth. John and Ruth.
All right. Well, John and Ruth. Well, hey, God bless them. They're looking down, just smiling on their little guy right here. What a great answer. What Damon was at Mark Twain that said, when he left the house at 18, came back at 22, he was amazed at how smart his father got over those years, right?
Yeah,
totally.
John, does that resonate a little bit with you?
Totally. And I have a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Yeah, so do I.
I've seen it from both sides of the equation here. Yeah,
no, I'm right there with you, brother. I've got a 17.
About 25, it starts to switch.
Yeah. It'll turn around and so hey, this is awesome. I think Harry dropped a note. I think Harry's got a 17-year-old too, possibly. Harry, I think you maybe dropped a note this week about that. So, John, thank you for sharing. So it sounds like great combination. And pique my curiosity, musician. What do you play?
Drums.
Oh, you're a drummer. Yeah, nice.
I'm a drummer.
See, gosh, I knew. You know what? I was a drummer when I was a little guy.
What kind of drums, though?
Well, that's a djembe and a doumbek from the doumbek's from Morocco. The djembe's from the music store. But, all different kinds. I mean, I've had timpani, electronic drums, full kind of like Rush drum set that goes all the way around you.
Oh, wow.
Just a little teeny kit. Now I don't even have a kit. I play other kits when I go places. If there's a kit, I don't have any of my own equipment except for like African percussion or basically ethnic percussion because it's portable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, hey, Whitney's got another comment here. I'm going to pull up Damon, the Industrial Marketing Summit. I hope to go again next year. It was awesome. Totally agree. So, John, we're going to dive into that. So, again, drop a note in the chat box. Let us know that you're out there. Connect with John on LinkedIn. He has just a wealth of information, all sorts of great things going on. John, so let's go here. So, you're an Akron Zip back in the day. And so so you talked a little bit about mom and dad, your engineering side, creativity side.
Yeah.
What inspired you? What led you into marketing, and really what led you into industrial marketing?
So for me, when I went to school, they kind of said, you should be an engineer. And they stuck me in engineering because I had I tested for the aptitude or whatever. And that was fine. But to me, it got boring fast. Like I thought, okay, this is too, no offense to engineers out there. I know, and we work with lots of you and we love you, but it was too cut and dry. And so I wanted something a little more organic. And so I got super interested in studying people. So I actually ended up studying ancient history and psychology. I have a double major in ancient history and psychology because I feel like they're harder to figure out, people. And then I said, well, I love systems. I love creativity, and I find people fascinating, and I need money. So how do you put together people and how they work and systems and communication and creativity and money? And the answer was marketing. So I just ended up really going into a creative field. I was a graphic designer. My first job out of college was graphic design, and then that led up to marketing. And then I started an agency, and then I became a consultant, and I've worked in companies, outside of companies, et cetera, et cetera. Industrial marketing in particular is interesting to me because it's complex. So it's not just an emotional play like, hey, our shoes are cool, you should buy them. It's not just that easy. Not that that's that easy, but it's way more complicated. It's like a long game, and you have so many different channels and so many different verticals and so many different messages and stakeholders, and all of that makes it complex. So I love that. I love complex problems. So that's why industrial marketing, it just to me, it hit all the things that I find interesting and is a job that allows me to feed my family at the same time, right? Yeah. So that whole ikigai thing, if you've heard of that, where you're combining what you love, what you're good at, what makes money and what the world needs.
Right. Absolutely love it. All right. That was fantastic. Damon, we got another comment.
Yeah, we got some comments. John says, if you take my 17 and 20-year-old, you can have 4 teenagers.
No, I'm good.
God bless you, Harry.
Yep. Yeah. Whitney says, fascinating. And then Samira, she's saying, happy Friday.
Hey, happy Friday, Samira. So, so again, we've got John Joyce here. So drop a note. Let us know where you're coming from in the chat box. Connect with John on LinkedIn. You will thank us. He's just a dynamo, powerhouse, industrial marketing phenomenon. So John, just share a little bit about your journey. I'm going to get up to what we're working on today. You're deep in doing a deep dive into integration, data analytics, those types of things. Now, I don't know how deep you want to go. We were talking before we went online a little bit about you've made a little. You went across the pond, as I understand it, right? So you went across the pond. Now you're coming to us live from Portugal. You want to just Damon, this is so inspiring. I don't know how deep you want to go, John, but just share a little bit how you brought your family over to Portugal.
Yeah, no problem at all. People find it interesting that I'm in Portugal. I mean, Portugal has been recently discovered by America. When we moved here, actually, you would say, I'm in Portugal, and they're like, is that like the capital of Spain or something? And you're like, well, close. No, it's not in South America either. It's actually its own country, but it is next to Spain. now people are very aware of Portugal, especially in the States. Like over the last few years, it's gotten super popular with Americans. So most people nowadays probably heard about it, or it's on their list to go, or they've been already. But anyways, the reason why we got here was kind of like a whole confluence of circumstances, which were actually the most difficult time in my life as a man. It was, I don't think I slept for 3 years. And what essentially happened was at that time, this is going all the way back to 2010, I had an agency, a small boutique agency, and I loved it. It was going great. It was literally right across the street from my house, the perks of being a business owner. And we were doing industrial marketing and other types of marketing, and the subprime mortgage crisis happened. And 3 of my biggest clients were related to home building and real estate. And so that was like, they were the 80 of the 80-20.
Yeah.
And so they all disappeared, actually. One of them is still around. Actually, 2 of them are still around, but they hit pause like in a major way. And we held our breath for 2 solid years on the 20 and basically just couldn't do it any longer. And I had to sell the agency. So I sold the agency. We had put all of our money and everything into it to keep it going for 2 years. So this was actually my master class in how not to run a business. So people always say, well, you have experience and knowledge about this or that. And I can say, I don't know anything about anything. And I can tell you 100 ways not to do something because I've made a lot of the dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of those things, throwing good money after bad, and just basically holding on to my ego and saying, I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to fail. And then what we did was just fail ultra spectacularly. And we ended up losing literally everything except our house. And then at that same period of time, my mom died and my sister died. And my dad was already gone. I have one other sister, but 3/4 of my childhood family that was in the area was gone. My business was gone. And the church we were serving in at the time had a leadership catastrophe. And I'm not going to go into details on that, but that also blew up. And then in that crater of what was previously our life, we were looking around and saying, okay, that sucked, but we actually now have no ties to any reason to stay in Akron, Ohio. We've been here at that point, 25 years or something like that. And our own family won't even come visit us here because it's boring. So why are we here? Yeah. No offense to Akron. I'm going to offend everybody, I guess. But anyways, so at that point in time, we said, this is kind of a sort of freedom. And so, sometimes you can have that paralysis actually when you could go in any possible direction and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, we just decided if we're going to do anything crazy, now's the time. Our kids were 5 and 8 at the time. And we thought they're kind of portable. It's not going to destroy their world. And let's put the house on the market, our last remaining thing and everything in it. And we sold the house and had an estate sale and sold literally everything we owned down to the glasses and stuff from the, kitchen drawers and then packed up and moved overseas. And initially we went to Morocco. So we went there for about half a year, a long summer, the longest summer of my life, because I'm going to tell you also, it was the hottest summer in the history of Marrakesh at 120 plus degrees and Ramadan. But anyways, that's a whole other story. Yeah. From there, we went to Lisbon and we were like, okay, Lisbon is our speed. We kind of dig it here. And we moved from Morocco to Lisbon. So this is our 3rd continent now at this point. And we just loved it. And so to end the story, just stayed here, basically. We have come back to the States for work at certain periods of time, but for the most part, over the last, say, 12 years, we've been here 9 of those years. So our kids mostly grew up here, but they did get the chance to come to the ride the school bus at school, be in band, do some other typical American things. But but they also ride the train, speak Portuguese, and know what a pastel de nata is. So,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, Damon, dude, did you expect that story?
Nope.
You didn't see that one coming. Hey, we've got a few comments.
We do.
We got a few emojis if you want to grab those.
Yeah. We go first of all, we got, Ronaldo. You start talking about something in Europe and Portugal, you got to talk about Ronaldo.
Ronaldo.
Samira is saying how on earth people didn't have any idea about it. I'm no world traveler. I was back when I was 25. It was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Traveling out there, so much fun. And then Whitney, she is a emoji there from listening to the story, because I mean that's a tough deal you were in, and it had to be. Business is one
painful.
thing.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was traumatized after
that. The family thing. Holy heck, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. That's for sure. Business, that sucks too. That's all bad. But family, you can't replace. That's the thing that stinks about that. But
it does.
But then we got Samira. She's dropping a couple comments, and Whitney again. What a time of uncertainty. But I tell you, the uncertainty, that your courage with your spouse and your kids to just go, hey, we're selling it down to nothing and we're going. I mean, that's cool as heck, because you want to talk about the beginning of a new adventure. Kind of what Whitney's saying here. Living in Morocco must have been a unique experience. Other than the 120 degrees,
right? But that's unique.
I love Marrakesh. I mean, we go back all the time. We've already been back twice this year.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend it. If you haven't been there, go there. It's just a completely cultural, different experience.
Yeah. It's good stuff though. Good stuff. And then Harry dropped a comment. I'm always inspired by people who demonstrate resilience, and you are a shining example. Bravo.
Hey, that's so kind of you
how
to
about
say that.
Everybody give a big round of applause. And you know what? We have a lot to talk about. We're going to dive into industrial marketing, some other things, but this is life, and John, so John just told me the story before we went on live. John, first off, thank you for sharing your story with us here publicly. That's not an easy story to share with, strangers or on a live stream like this. So my hat's off to you, but talk about, this is the understatement of the day. Turning lemons into lemonades. Lemonade, right? I mean, I need something much more dramatic than lemon into lemonade. But dude, for you and your wife to sit there and everything that you went through, the mortgage, you had the mortgage crisis had nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? It's so here's an unforced error that came into your life. Mom comes into poor health. That's these things come your way.
Yeah.
And you sit back, and so many people could have folded. So many people curl. I've been curled up in that baby position multiple times. And here, you guys step up and take a trip and a change of a lifetime. Can you just share, scary, exciting? What do you remember 2010? What was going through your mind as you're like, oh, we're really doing this?
Yeah, I think there was a huge amount of just a desire to escape, just going to be honest. So after the kind of catastrophe that whole process took years. So it was 2 to 3 years, say, of going through all of that. And then I think we just wanted to hit the reset button. You know what I mean? Let's just do something completely different. We just went out of here. Have you ever been through say a really bad toxic workplace? I'm just going to try to make an analogy, and you're going in there for years. And when you walk into it, it kind of makes you sick just to go through the door, or to smell the carpet when you walk in, okay, you make associations. Well, all of life was kind of like that, where it was no matter where you looked, it was just okay, this whole life we currently have, just I feel kind of traumatized from it, and now it's just making me sick. I got to get out of here, kind of a thing. And so, there was just at the time of leaving, there was really a sense of joy and excitement of just oh, we're going to do something completely different.
Yeah.
We're going to go somewhere completely new. And then the reality of like, okay, that's not a vacation. Like moving somewhere is different. Like, you're figuring everything out. You're wasting all kinds of money, making stupid mistakes, getting ripped off, learning things, doing things the wrong way, going in a direction, changing direction. And then you invested in this direction and all that's down the toilet. And now you're going in this direction. There was a lot of that because we weren't like as prepared probably as we should have been and just kind of jumped, So there was excitement, but then smack in the face with just the reality of trying to live overseas. And then Marrakesh was, for my family in particular, too much of a culture shock. I mean, we had been overseas. We'd been in the Middle East. I worked in Saudi Arabia for a while. Like, we knew what we were getting into. It wasn't like we had never been in for instance, a Muslim country or like a place that's got a different climate and different culture or any of that kind of thing. We had been. But still, the reality of it was hard. And even coming here, there's so many challenges. People come here all the time and don't make it, so to say, because like it's harder than you think it is. Integrating into a new culture, learning all the new things, even just a dumb government bureaucracy, like how do you get the power turned on and different things like that. But the fun of it outweighs all the difficulty of it, at least for us, because we like so that's the bad. You temper that with all of the excitement of like, this is completely new, and you're exploring and you're in the Medina of Marrakesh getting lost. Like you walk literally 5 minutes down the road and you can't get back to your house. It's like that, and it's like sights and smells and awesome people. Like we met some of the most awesome people. We still go, our little neighbors across the street, because we lived in the actual Medina, which means the old part from like 600 AD. And our little neighbors across the street from us in Sidi bin Sliman, we still go see them. Like we've seen them multiple times, since then. And that was like 12 years ago, So like we made great friends and had great experiences and in Morocco and also here. So that's what's kept us going and kept us exploring, and that's the positive side of it. And then Portugal, as Damon said, is just like a beautiful place. Like it's just so lovely. There's just so much sun, and there's European culture, interesting architecture, different food, different music, cheap wine if you like wine. Great climate. There's not much to complain about over here, honestly, except the taxes. It's Europe, but they have the NHR program, or used to. Anyways.
Well, all right. That's fantastic. And so, last thing, as you mentioned, you're quite it's a very popular destination now. A lot of retirees, you hear Portugal this, Portugal that. I mean, you really were pioneering in 2000, what'd you say, 10, 11, 12, when you first, so you sparked a wave, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, when we came here, there wasn't many Americans here, right. But now there's loads. Like in the post-COVID time, tons of Americans have started coming here from California, especially. Yeah. If you're coming from California, Portugal's a bargain. If you're coming from Ohio, it's actually a little expensive on the real estate side, but everything else is cheap. Cost of living here is low. Nice. So yeah, there's been an influx of Americans, I'd say, in the last 3 or 4 years. But when we got here in 2012, the country was in the crisis with when all the European countries were going bankrupt. Remember that period of time? Portugal was in that in 2012 when we came here. So it was like a big recession, but it's not anymore. I mean, they came out of that period excellently and are doing well now.
Yeah, well, good for you. So, all right, let's go here, John. So you make a huge pivot with your life, your family, go to another, 2 different continents. Talk about business a little bit. So if you want to share, what was your mindset? What was your game plan? How did you resurrect your business? And then we're going to dive into today.
Yeah. So just to continue the storyline, I had an agency before we left. I sold that agency. I kept a few clients who I was just consulting with one-on-one when I left to come to Portugal. And One of those clients actually just started taking more and more and more and more and more of my time. That was Brennan Industries. So eventually they said, John, would you come back to America and create a marketing department? And so I came back to the US and built a marketing department there. And during the time I was there, the company went from like 40 million to like 250 million and became a global company. It wasn't just me. I'm not taking credit, but it did happen while I was there. I played some part.
John, I would take as
You're
much
part
credit
of
as
it.
possible. Yeah, take as much credit as possible.
You're part of it.
I mean, the logo I designed is like 20 feet on the building, you know.
There you go.
I definitely left a mark. But anyways, I stayed there as long as I could. But at some point, I felt like there wasn't enough opportunity staying within that company. So I set off again and used a lot of the experiences I've had over 30 years of doing industrial marketing to launch back out into a business. So I started my company, which is called Bridger.io. And what that company does is technical integrations for industrial applications. So things like tying manufacturers into distributors' ERP systems like Motion Supplier Connect or AIT's Direct Connect, or bringing your CAD system that's on your website, bringing those leads into your HubSpot, Salesforce, or Dynamics, and different things like that. Different problems that I had solved along the way for manufacturers and knew that there was a need to solve these problems. Like if you do defense contracts with the Department of Defense and have CMMC rules, there's all kinds of security requirements. It can be very difficult to integrate something. So I have an on-premise integration platform that helps with that allows you to put that in your DMZ and still do integrations with selective database replication. So without getting too technical, different types of integrations for industrial applications. So that's how I started the company. Now that company is growing, gradually. And while it's growing, I'm kind of bootstrapping it with fractional CMO work. So I work with just a few select companies leading their industrial marketing while I'm growing this technical side of the business. So it's kind of a 1-2 scenario with both of my areas of interest and expertise.
And it's interesting because what you're doing is that creative and like you said, the coding kind of thing mixed together with your marketing and that, because those integrations, I mean, that's no small feat to make some of those custom integrations work, but they are significant problems. I mean, it just, the amount of, like you said, in these integrations, you often find people are, we're going to do it manual until they realize that that's just not going to work. Or B, they're going to go, okay, we're going to do some sort of import, export, whatever, to these things, which over time just proves to be, or some, sleight of hand automation that really doesn't work until you get the real integration and you go, oh, this just works. And we, and we don't even think about it anymore because it's integrated.
Yeah.
Right. And that's it's just really interesting seeing how companies go through that process until they find that integration, that custom integration that really works well. Because you can waste a ton of money if you don't do it right. Well,
so a lot of people think my platform has an integration capability built in. It's got an API. My other thing has an API. I can make them talk to each other. And if you haven't customized it, you might be able to turn it on and just have them talk to each other. Even something as super basic and fundamental as connecting HubSpot to Salesforce. Okay, those have a built-in integration between both of those softwares that you can just turn on. That's like an authorized integration. But if you've changed things, so all you have to do is change the state field to pick list values in Salesforce, and now all of a sudden your HubSpot integration won't work anymore, and you'll look in there one day and there's like 500 errors for unable to do an integration. Well, that's an extremely small example, but as companies scale and have systems that are more tailored to their specific business requirements, there's none of these kind of like off the shelf solutions really work. You still need, you're basically hiring a software developer who's using that solution to build an integration that actually works with your custom objects, your custom data, your custom requirements, whatever they are. So, it gets complicated and outside of the realm of just like, oh, Zapier will do this. It gets out of that realm like pretty fast if you're doing any kind of real customization and usage of data that's mapped towards how your business actually works and not just the default HubSpot, like how it comes out of the box or whatever. Insert your software here,
Yeah.
So if you get any additional requirements put on you, like GDPR, if you have branches in the EU, branches in the US, if you have government compliance issues or any kind of proprietary system, all of a sudden the complexity level just goes up really fast. And, so people need help figuring out those situations.
Well, like you said, these kind of solutions aren't off the shelf. I mean, especially when you're looking at all the different kinds of systems that you're hooking together or need to hook together.
Right.
You talked about Salesforce and HubSpot. They are probably a rare example of two that actually will even talk to each other out of the box at all.
Mm-hmm.
For
sure.
We've run into it in e-commerce applications before, where you're trying to connect suppliers to a third-party integration hub that's moving between all different platforms and suppliers and moving everything from orders to payments to, and when you look at that, it's all custom work to get those things talking because nobody says it exactly the same way.
No, and then in the murky intertwinings of those integrations, what leaks of data are happening?
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, here's data. I have 7 data points over here, and I'm putting them into this system that has 5 slots for it. So what am I losing? Do I even realize I'm losing it? Is that actionable, helpful information? So you can very easily string together a leaky system, that brings some piece of information over, but is it really bringing over the information you need the way you need it? And that's where, you really start, it does get more complicated fairly quick,
Well, and no, you mentioned one huge thing, know what you're leaking, because even in the simple systems like I've been working with is if you're processing thousands of orders a day, how many are you missing?
Right.
Because the way systems time out and all these integrations work, you can just drop 15 minutes worth of orders. Well, that didn't get transmitted or some reason. Well, you go, well, that's 15 minutes, but that could be thousands of orders. It could be, or hundreds of orders.
Yeah.
And then you go on the other end. That just means I'm missing deliveries and all these other things that are going to make the cover. That your integration stuff that you're talking about is just fascinating to me. And we don't need to go down the rabbit hole too far with this, but because it is, I mean, it costs, average size businesses, tens of thousands of dollars, if not a month, every quarter, and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because it's eaten up in labor and mistakes.
Absolutely. Like, you just made me think of a story of one integration I did, which, one of the first ones I ever did, and I won't mention names, but it was a connection between it was a e-business integration where people could place orders and they came in through this integration. And the connection, over the internet, like the internet interface connection, would create a 1% error. Okay. And it at first didn't notice it, but literally what made me think of it was you were saying thousands of orders a day. So when it ramped up to 1,000 orders a day, which is where it did, then that's 10 orders a day that were just erroring, and then it, at first didn't realize that was happening. So we had to build a whole redundancy system. So it was like the order came in, it got set over here. Then there was a whole separate process that sent the order in and then re-verified that the order was received, and then went back and said, okay, we can mark that when it's done. Instead of just like piping the data from here to here, it had to go through a whole storage redundancy double checking system, which is 3 times more work than just moving the data from here to here. Right. But then it was 100%, 100% effective. No matter what happened, You could be offline for 3 days and you would come back online and all those orders would just come right in,
Yeah.
But, not every system is built that way, right? And the people who are buying systems or are planning some of these systems don't know, even if how resilient is your system? How robust is it? What kind of backup plans are there for things like bad latency or your own internet connection at your office goes down? Things that are out of the control of, anybody in the chain except you. And those things, even if it's just intermittent, like this was an intermittent error, like you couldn't catch it doing it. It was so rare, you couldn't catch it doing it. So it was like just an example of where, okay, all of a sudden to live at peace and not lose 1% of these orders, you have to build a much more complex system.
Yeah.
So like 1% is 300 orders a month. I mean, just put that in perspective.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Crazy.
It adds up quick when you get 1,000 orders a day.
Hey, Damon, we've got some great comments.
We got tons of comments here. I will start back here with Alawasi. Thanks for being here. Made it in. Thanks so much. He's got a bunch of good comments here. Go through those. And then we've got Whitney says, I know an American family living in Portugal and loving it. That's awesome.
Great. Hey, Whitney, now you know too.
Yeah. Now, Dale Underwood, integration is easy for anyone who doesn't have to do it.
Amen.
The concept
Dale.
is easy.
Amen.
It's like anything. It's easy, but it's not simple. Or it's simple, but it's not easy.
Simple. There you go. And Gail drops in today. Gail Robertson, humans and machines working together. There you go.
Happy Friday, Gail.
Yeah, happy Friday. We got Lana here. It said yes. And then not apples to apples, no apples to apples. That's everybody thinks it goes together. And it's like you said with Salesforce and HubSpot, they go, oh yeah, we got the API integration. And the people that are buying it on the other end, of course, we don't know what that really means. We go, oh yeah, it's got an integration. Then you try to make it work. And it's like, whoop. Yeah.
So, awesome. You know what, before I know we could keep you all day, John.
Oh yeah.
So you've got a lot to do in Portugal. So let's go here. You mentioned defense. You mentioned CMMC. Can you do just for any folks out there where we cover that quickly for anybody out there in the defense industry or just where that is pertinent? Just can you do a little deeper dive? Just share some of your expertise there, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So if you work with defense industry contracting now and even more like into the future, because there's this whole roadmap of, and it's only going to get worse or more, not worse, because it's a good thing. It's only going to get more intense,
more worse
over the next several years. You have heard of CMMC, Cyber Security Maturation Model. And so it's like, basically you have to, as a defense contractor, you have to, in order to get contracts, meet up to these standards. And there's a few different levels in the newest version of it. And some levels are harder than others, but depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, your requirements for cybersecurity could make it very difficult to share data. Okay, because the whole reason for all of this is because foreign governments aren't targeting like a U.S. government computers. They're actually targeting like manufacturers trying to get data on like weapons systems or all different kinds of things. And because our defense industry base is like all kinds of little manufacturers and people all over the place, they're all at different varying levels of security. And so the government enacted this system to kind of bring everybody up to a higher level and said, you can't have a contract unless you meet these basic requirements. But those basic requirements make it difficult to share data because by nature, they're like trying to make a brick wall between you and the rest of the world. It doesn't make it impossible. It just makes it more challenging. So that's one area where I've been able to help companies to share data where, for instance, you can't actually connect anything to their ERP. So they might have an ERP and it has a REST API and it is compatible with various kind of integrations, but you can't get to it because it's not legal to allow it to be accessible to the rest of the world. Like you can't just put it on the internet. You know what I mean? That's a massive violation. So
Yeah.
You have to come up with systems of getting around this kind of thing. And I have an on-premise integration platform that I can put in your data center in a DMZ, for instance, with a replication of some subset of your database that's not information that we're trying to control. And then that can be a live connection between your systems, your own systems in your DMZ and outside of your DMZ. And my system can provide an integration point built around your data. So that's all custom, built around just the raw database data that's brought over from your system. We still don't put data into your system. There's ways to get around that too, but this allows us to get data out of your system and share it. So for instance, an application is you take your product data and pump it to your website. That's can be sort of straightforward sometimes, but in this kind of situation, it's kind of technically impossible. So, you have kind of air gaps between those systems. So how do you get around it? So this allows you to do things like that, share information with people downstream from you, take orders in from your e-commerce system, even though it can't talk to your ERP and all that kind of thing. So it enables you to kind of be compliant with the requirements and still do the things that you want to do with your data.
Wow. Okay. That is juicy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of manufacturers that could use that expertise right there, John. So that was, man, that was great. Damon, any comments, thoughts that you have as far as integration? I know you're doing a ton of different integration.
Yeah, I mean, this what you're talking about there, and we used to deal with the old-fashioned way when I was back in the aerospace, and you were doing the defense contracts where you needed clearance and stuff. That you had to work off of paper a lot of times, or they actually back in the day you were moving stuff on disk or USB drives and stuff because you couldn't get the data sets and everything we needed to manufacture without doing it that way. But yeah, that's awesome though, to be able to do that and create, like you said, the air gaps so that you can keep everything secure like you need to, but still allow ordering, because that's one of the biggest pain in the butts, I think, is, to get, how do you let somebody order something? How do you let somebody see the status on an order? How do you, just, and how do you make sure you're not, I don't know all the requirements, but, not showing exactly what they've ordered,
Right.
And making it so the person on that end knows what they bought, but the rest of the world may not, so it's just good stuff all around. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the problems that are out there are kind of interesting, and they're fun to solve. And as you get to know like different businesses, I don't know if you've worked with enough industrial manufacturers, like they're all unique. They're all interesting. They all have like they're so experienced, and their depth of knowledge about the one thing that they do is like so deep, and their processes and everything are it's always fascinating to like get inside these companies and kind of learn about them, see what they're doing, and just they're good people, and it's fun to help solve their problems. You know what I mean? I haven't met a bad one yet. I don't know if I've been lucky, but so far, like they're all good people. You come away saying like, oh man, those are great people. I love working with them.
Nice.
Awesome. Nice. So John, as we start winding down, I've got a couple questions left, but before we wrap up, best way for folks to reach out, connect with you, to take a deeper dive, if this is just music to their ears, learning about integration, some of these other areas of expertise that you have, what's the best way to find and reach you?
The best way is on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and you message me and I'll be responsive. So just reach out and say hey.
Awesome.
Well, definitely connect with John. So John, I want to wrap up with a couple quick questions here. So first off, if anybody out there that just came in a little bit late, there's an amazing, incredible, inspiring story that John shared. I encourage you, invite you, welcome you, hit the little rewind button and go back and catch John's story. And it's you'll get chills. It's moving. It's inspiring. It's a wonderful story. John, as you've had this 30-year entrepreneurial journey, if you were to go back to your younger self, or maybe in 2009, or say, your kids, there's a younger entrepreneur out there, what would you say? What's the best advice that either you've ever received or that you would love to pass along to another entrepreneur? What's the best advice that you would love to pass along?
I think if I had one thing that I've learned is not to invest your entire identity into a single business idea, but to know that businesses come and go. Just going to be honest, they come and go. There's some businesses that are 60 years old and nobody starts a business thinking, well, nowadays people do start a business thinking I'm going to sell it. Software companies do it all the time. But, if you get too invested in it, in your personality, you can't see and make logical choices that you need to make, so that's what I would say. I would say, don't get too overly invested in your identity with your business. Be looking for new things to do. You don't know. You may want to start a different business or do something completely different from what you're doing. And it might be a better business than the one you started last year, so just always be looking for opportunities and don't kind of tighten the grasp on any one idea too tight, but hold everything kind of like with open hands, and it's all in God's hands, really.
Right. Oh, what a great answer, man. I absolutely love that. It's all in God's hands. And, and Damon, we talk about that, sometimes don't be so married to your solution.
Oh,
be
yeah.
married to solving your customer's problem, just let's think of Kodak, right? Let's think of Blockbuster Video. So I think, John, brilliant advice. Don't get too married to your particular solution, but just really dedicate yourself to that customer's problem. You're going to go a long way. John, one last question for you, my friend. So now, even though you're in Portugal, I don't know, do they play baseball in Portugal?
Not a lot. They actually have American football teams here, which is
they have
kind
American
of
football teams. Nice. Okay.
well.
So, all right. So now you're from the Akron area. Did you happen to grow up? Were you a Cleveland, now Guardians? Were you a Guardians fan at all?
Well, I was on the west side of Cleveland. Yeah. So, Indians fan, now Guardians.
Nice.
I'm not a huge sports fan, but, I'm definitely, you can't miss the Indians, Guardians.
Yeah.
If you live in the area.
That's right.
It's
and
huge.
they have a great drummer there, by the way, right, in center field. So I have a quick question for you. It's kind of baseball related. So let's say hypothetically, I'm asking for a friend. Let's just say hypothetically, if you say there's a Guardians game going on, it's like bottom of the ninth, there's 2 outs, and there's a person on second base, and they need somebody to come up to the plate, hit it and winning run. Okay, you with me? Mm-hmm. So the manager of the Guardians, ex-Indians, looks down the bench and says, "Hey, Joyce, grab your helmet, grab your bat, get up to the plate and hit in the winning run for us." All right, you with me? So you pop on your helmet, you grab your bat, you're walking to the plate. Being the musician that you are, as you walk up to the plate, what's your walk-up song?
Oh, geez, what a pivot. And this question is set up for like 20 minutes of sports and then pivots at the last second. Oh, geez. I don't know, man. That's a good question. It'd probably have to be something by either Rush or Metallica.
Rush or Metallica.
Yeah. Maybe Tom Sawyer from Rush.
That would be a good one.
Dropped up that. We'll go Tom Sawyer from Rush. So if anybody's under the age of whatever, just you have to Google it, But
they should go back and listen to it.
Yeah, go back and listen to it. It's a phenomenal song. So John, great. Thank you for playing along, and I appreciate that. So John, any parting thoughts, words of wisdom that you want to share as we close out? We mentioned how to connect with you on LinkedIn. Awesome business advice. You're the integrating guru. Any parting thoughts as we close out?
Just thanks for having me on, guys. It's one, it's an honor and a privilege, and two, it's been super fun. You guys are great to hang out with and great to chat with. Should have done this sooner.
We should have done this sooner.
Right. I'm not faulting you. I'm not trying to make you mad and pissing everybody off, but it's been awesome.
All right. It's all right.
Hey, thank you for sharing, Dad, John Sr. Thank you for sharing, Ruth. Thank you for sharing your story on bringing your family to Portugal. Again, I'm having a talk with my wife tonight. I'm going to point out on the map where we might go. So anyway, wonderful inspiration. Thank you. We appreciate you. We wish you and your family just continued massive success. God bless everybody out there. Damon, let's thank everyone in the chat box. But before we do that and we close out for today, boy, if you could just go out and be someone's inspiration, just like John Joyce was for us today. How about, hey, let's give John a big round of applause, Damon. And let's thank you, everybody in the chat box. And Damon, why don't you close us out for today?
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here today, John. Awesome conversation. And I'm telling you, if you got in here late, you're out there listening, go back to the beginning, listen to the inspiring story, as Curt said, and then listen to how John is helping people integrate these challenging systems and the things he's doing in industrial marketing. I want to thank, first of all, Whitney for dropping in. Thanks so much. We got Harry with us today. We got Olawasu, we got Samira and Dale and Lana. Hey, just thanks so much for being here today, everyone. Appreciate you. And we will be back again next week. Have a great weekend.